Hi everyone, this is Avalon Ash, and this is just a video for some general overall information for all of the witches jars that I did today and that I'll be posting separately. So witches jars or spell jars, witches jar spells, whatever you want to call it. They're also known as bottle spells or container spells. This is an old form of folk magic, which is one of the earliest mentions of magic within the 17th century. It started around, I think, the 1680s is when it started being, written about or, transcribed. So it's most found with usually cursing or curse breaking types of baneful magic, or also the hoodoo honey jar spell that is really common with love magic, but it's really a versatile way of performing magic that's also very easy. So just to recap, one of the first things you want to do with a jar is make sure it's clean, and then set your intent for the jar itself. Whatever it's going to be, you want to set your intention, and then that jar is dedicated to this for the rest of its little existence. So define your intent and everything that you want involved that's revolving around the spell. This is what your intent is. For example, if you're focusing on if you're focusing on money, or if you're focusing on love, that's what your intent is. If you have specific goals, don't add 12 different things into a jar. Like, don't get a white jar and make it for money and love and blah blah blah. Try to set a jar for each intention if you're going to make multiple ones, because you're talking about focused energy. So it's not about wish making or anything like that, or generalization. You want to be specific, you want to be realistic, and you also want to be ethical. Consider your ethics when you go into this, and what's right and what you think is right, and whatever. So namely, like, what kinds of things you need to put into the jar to achieve your goal, basically. If you want to choose the bell jars, they're great, but you can use a lot of different types of containers. These are just easy and nice, and I like them. They're really common, and they're easy to get to for most people, but basically any kind of container can be used for a spell. And I have to admit that I'm not entirely comfortable using plastic containers, but my opinions don't really matter when it comes to the effectiveness of this stuff. But personally, I like to use the glass jars. I just don't like using the plastic unless I'm desperate. I just personally like these, but it's really a preference thing. You can also use clay jars, for example, just as long as they're not cracked or open. You want to be able to seal them. You can also scrounge around your house and go into thrift shops, find any kind of like baby food jars, mason jars, pickle, mayo, salad, oil jars, anything that you want. So you don't have to spend money on this. You can just scrounge around and find something probably for free or very cheap. This is not an expensive ritual to do. So you want to make sure that you cleanse your jar before you do it. Clean it with soap and water. Make sure it's clean. Make sure it's not dirty or gross or anything like that, because this is going to be a sacred tool that you're using to manifest your reality. So just treat it as such. But yeah, so another thing that you want to remember to do is put in personal items. Again, you can use these as like a battery jar for overall intentions, for just generalization of love or money or whatever, but usually you're making a specific request, so make sure you're using personal items of yourself or the person that you're focusing on, or your target. You can also do kind of intent prayers, but make sure that there's a lot of power in your words. So it's really helpful to write something out and put it onto a slip of paper and into the jar, because your words are really powerful. So just remember that. As you can see, my love jar is completely melting down, and that's really what we want. And it's going to catch on fire a little bit. That's okay. Alright, I'm just going to blow it out so it doesn't catch my room on fire. So just remember, liquids, if you're going to use liquids in a jar of any kind, make sure that it's a jar that has to do with your intent, like honey in a love jar or vinegar in a baneful magic jar. or, you know, purified water or salt water in a cleansing jar if you're going to use liquids. And just make sure that you're using a container that's sealed so it doesn't leak all over the place. Just remember that when you're using urine for the baneful magic ones, or the protection jars, by the way, you can use urine for protection jars, but make sure it's, if you're protecting an area, you're using your urine. That's a powerful way of using your DNA, your cells, as part of the magic to protect yourself. And for the protection rituals for either these or those, if you want to add urine, I would suggest using the war water. Don't put urine with your cleansing or protection jars like these ones. These I like to keep dry. These ones I like to have wet for different reasons. So if you're using urine, you can also use it not for just hexing or cursing or making a war on someone else. You can use it to protect yourself. You can also add some tourmaline to those war waters for protection against negative energy. You can add that in there with your urine. That's another idea that I forgot to mention. Vinegar is used to curse or harm others. Or to spoil something. So just make sure that, you know, vinegar jars can explode, so don't fill them to the top, and keep the jar wrapped in some kind of cloth or towel unless you plan on like getting rid of it really quickly. So just keep that in mind if you're using vinegar. With the honey, sugar water, or nectar of some kind, which you're using to compel someone or something, whether it's to make friends or make someone more persuasive towards you, if you want to soothe over some hurt feelings or something like that, or you want to sweeten your disposition. So that's another idea for the love type of jars. When you're using sugar water or honey, you can also use it for the friendship making, being persuasive or soothing over hurt feelings or sweeten someone up. That's another idea for the love jars. If you're adding any kind of oils or infusions or anything like that, there's so many different reasons you could do it, like blessings or health or prosperity. Naturally, you're going to be using it based on your intent. For example, with a money spell, you might want to include a tincture or infusion of oil from money-making herbs or like cinnamon or mint or something like that. Just make sure that it fits your intention. And then you're not crossing it over and you're using something baneful for something positive. Water can be used, but I don't really like or recommend using plain water for anything other than, like, you know, the cleansing water with the salt. I don't really recommend plain water, at least, you know, like, you can make a herbal infusion with it and give it more of a boost, but personally I think heavily salted or blessed water can be good for purification purposes. But beyond that, I would avoid plain tap water if you can. If you can't, that's totally fine, but you really won't need it. I'm talking about solids, just like liquids. There's different types that you could use based on your intent. So, you know, you do your research, look up what different herbs and items that are solid that you can use in your magical work, that you can either get from a grocery store or that you have around the house. So just do your research. Some things that people commonly forget about is, you know, using crystals, herbs, rocks, wood, pine cones. I mean, this is for purification, protection, knowledge, wisdom. I mean, you can find these things. I had the acorns earlier. Just little items. You're surrounded by magical items all the time. So again, do your research, look this stuff up, see what's around you, and use it in your magic. So just use your brain, just think about things. Just remember that you are giving off a certain type of energy, and that you're interested in raising. So if you're really focused on energy, if you're really focused on, money, for example, and you're really focused on, you're giving off whatever energy is inside your brain. If you think that, money is the root of all evil, then you're giving off that vibe and you are repelling that money. So, but if you're thinking like, I love money, money makes me so happy, I can't wait to have it, I have it, I've manifested it, I don't have to worry about it. If you're thinking a lot of positive money thoughts, money will come into your life. So just remember, you are amplifying and exuding energy, and you're on a vibration based off of your thoughts. So that's another thing to keep in mind with these money or jar spells. They're helping you focus your energy on a certain intent. There's a lot of different herbs and crystals and rocks and all kinds of things that you can use that I didn't talk about in the video. Just trying to use basic general information. I could go on and on and on about it, but really it depends again on you and your beliefs and how much, you know, money you can spend on this stuff and how creative you are and where you can go to find this stuff naturally. There's so much that goes into it. So I'm just giving you basic information, but by all means, you know, if you really want to get into this stuff, you can research it more, you can go crazy. There's obviously deities that people, you know, worship and believe in that factor into the stuff as well. If you want to get into that, that's fine. Remember, you can use these jars and you can chant or do affirmations. If you have some kind of mantra like I am wealthy, I am healthy, I'm happy, I'm free, I have everything that I need, want, and desire. You can hold the jar and say it. You can shake it and just really focus on it. So just remember, you can use prayers or chants to raise your power. You can do this while you're creating the jar or afterwards. Just remember, you can do that. You can also meditate on the goal before or during or after the creation of the jar. Meditation is really powerful. Don't count that out. Try it. Keep trying it until you finally get it. When to bury the jar. I don't like burying the jar. I don't like the idea of it. I know that people do it and you can do it and it's great and everything, but I just don't, unless the items are completely, if they're completely able to be absorbed by the environment in a safe way, you know, that's fine. But I personally don't really like it. But if you are, when to do it is when you're like seeking permanent protection or to break some kind of curse on a land or a person. If you again want to protect a property or a person, you would bury it on the land of that property or that person. You can also put it in a flower pot. If you want to safely bury an item, just get a huge flower pot, get some dirt from the earth or potting soil, put it in the pot, bury it that way, and then you can take it wherever you want. And you'll always have it, and it's buried. And it's the same thing. It's buried in the earth. It's got that earth energy. It's the same thing. So if you want to safely bury something, just put it in a flower pot. You can leave it by your doorstep, where it can be a magnet to draw those things into your life. So you can take this, for example, your money jar, bury it in a pot, put it by your front doorstep, put a flower in it, and then it's attracting or drawing that money energy into your home. And you can do that with all of them if you want. What else am I forgetting? And I know, like, in a city, it's really hard to bury stuff or get rid of stuff, so that's why you kind of got to be careful about, you know, what you do with these things afterwards. Trying to think of what else. Okay, so when to keep a jar on an altar. So I don't really have, that one's over there. So I keep using this one, but so I like to keep my jars on altars. For example, in the money jar always stays on my altar because I'm always trying to attract this one thing. For the baneful magic, I'm only having it on my altar while I'm focused on it, and when I'm ready to let it go, it's going to go on a shelf where no one's going to touch it. It's just for me. Same with love rituals. You know, you can put the love jar or mojo bag under your bed, on your altar, on a shelf. Cleansing rituals, same thing. You can keep these on an altar. Basically, you're keeping things on an altar when you're focusing on that thing continuously, and you're going to keep going back to that thing. But if you're not constantly going back to the thing, by all means, put it in a closet, put it on a shelf, put it under your bed, put it somewhere safe, but you don't have to keep the stuff on your altar all the time. By all means, it's nice to have it on your altar, though, to keep reminding you of this thing that you can just pick up and chant and shake and just kind of give it a boost. So when this let's see here, let me try to think. For example, if you don't want the jar anymore, so say you made a love jar for someone and you want the effects to stop. You don't like this person anymore. You don't want anything to do with this person anymore. You want to dismantle the jar. So break the seal if you have a seal. Take the ingredients out. You want to burn them if you can. If you can't burn them, then, and you can't bury them and they're not organic, just throw them in the trash. You know, you don't have any other option, but ideally you want to burn them after you've dismantled the jar. And then you want to, you know, you can also cleanse things under running water, but this can be kind of messy with herbs and stuff and getting your drains clogged. So you can always take things from the jar, put them in a bucket of water, running water, cleanse them, burn them, throw them in the trash, bury them, just make sure they're organic. There's a lot of different ways that you can dispose of the things, but you don't have to keep these jars forever. If you're done with the thing forever, like a love jar or a curse jar, dismantle the jar, take the items, destroy them, cleanse the items like the jar, clean it with running water, for example, or sage. It's not a good idea to dismantle a jar for cursing or hexing, or one that's done for breaking a curse or hex, unless you really know what you're doing. So that's the only one I would say caution about. I wouldn't get into the whole cursing, hexing thing unless you know what you're doing, but you can easily do some research and, you know, figure out how to do it. I'm just teaching you guys how to do it just in case you know what you're getting yourself into, because again, with the cursing, hexing, war water jars, those are the ones you're probably never going to dismantle. You're probably going to have those forever, so you need to make sure you're serious about it. So just make sure you know what you're doing when it comes to making them, and then just remember, you're probably not ever going to dismantle them, but if you are, you need to know what you're doing. So for example, you know, one thing I don't recommend is throwing the whole thing into a fire. This was something that I had read somewhere about cursing or curse breaking, which would throw a jar into a fire, and when it burst, it meant that the curse was working, like torturing the person that it's cast on, for example, or if you're lifting a curse, the curse is broken. This isn't necessary, and it's not a safe option either. However, when you dismantle the jar spell, you can have some components left over, like the ribbon or the paper, whatever. You can burn those items after you dismantle it if you're using safe means. So again, just be careful when you're dismantling the things. Use respect. You know, if you have deities or entities or angels or ancestors, ask for their protection when it comes to like baneful magic. But for the most part, for the happier, positive spell, like the money, the cleansing, protection, or the love, you can easily dismantle these. Dispose of the items properly and safely. The hexes, curses, and war waters, they're a bit different, so just use some caution with those, but you can definitely do it. It's not impossible. Just remember, these ones, the war water, the hexing, the cursing, the hex breaking, curse breaking, these things are for forever. These are not things you're going to be getting rid of anytime soon. So just remember that before you make them. So that's pretty much it. I think I included everything I could possibly remember. Again, this is just like a level 2 basic information, just to give you an idea of some things that you can play with and do when it comes to some poppet making, some mojo bags, jars, and rituals. I'm meaning to do these videos for such a long time. I'm sorry it took me so long. I've just been super busy. But if you ever have any questions, contact me, alchemy.inc, that's INC, at AOL.com, or you can leave comments. You can send me messages all over social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter. I'm all over the place. So hopefully these videos helped you and brought you some guidance and knowledge. And again, if you need anything, just let me know, and I hope you enjoyed the videos. Take care. Bye.